Look at that.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah. Chris Knockelman, I don't know if you're there or not, but your picture's up,
Yes,
and I'm happy.
I'm here. Sorry.
That is wonderful. Thank you. You gave us a quorum, and we've got important things to discuss. So while we've got everybody and the technology is working, and who knows what other problems could rear their ugly heads here. Let's get started. Welcome everybody. Happy Friday. I hope you haven't been inconvenienced with the vice president's visit yet. As some of us have. There are traffic jams all over the interstate system in Northern Kentucky. The very first thing we need to handle is an approval of the minutes of our last meeting. And good heavens, was it really November the 13th, the last time we had a meeting like this?
It was indeed.
Amazing. It all looks competently prepared to me, but I'm going to leave it to others to enter a motion and second it, please, for the passage of our minutes.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All right. I heard two disembodied voices. Chuck, was that you?
Yeah,
Okay.
and Gary was the second one.
And Gary? All right. Okay. We're in business. Anybody see anything that needs to be corrected or think of something that needs adding? All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. The motion carries. We're going to learn over the course of the next few minutes that 90% of life is just showing up. I had an enormous packet of material to go through, and I did read through it enough to see, confirm some of my impressions, and I'll throw some of those things out there along the way. But the very first thing to do is turn the floor to Tara and have her talk us through some of this stuff.
Okay, so Judge Pendry, what do you think about skipping the first part of the agenda and going straight to the action items? Since I know,
Absolutely.
is
Yeah,
that
that's fine.
Okay, so I
And
would be happy.
we'll pick up the rest of it later, assuming we're still
Yes.
in good shape.
Yes, well,
that's
that
fine.
way we don't need a quorum for those other items. So that way we can come back even at the, just after we've passed a couple things. So the first item is the WIOA local and regional plan. And this is a document that is required by our federal funding in WIOA, and it is designed for us by the Cabinet for Education and Workforce Development in Frankfurt. So they create a set of 5 chapters plus a little of questions that we are to answer, and we are to have community engagement, board engagement, your involvement. You might recall you've gotten a number of emails about this over the last 4 months. We had a 30-day public comment period in addition to all the other board engagement, and a public hearing that was publicized in all of the regional newspapers of record. And so that being completed, the Northern Kentucky Workforce Investment Board voted to approve this 250-page comprehensive planning document yesterday, and we are seeking your approval for the same today.
Yes, and apparently it needs to be done today. It looked like there was a provision in there that said our approval needs to come by the 30th.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Originally, it was due on June 30th, and then they changed the deadline to April 30th. But with the 30-day public comment period, that made it a very quick turnaround for this level of document. So yes, it is due today, which is why quorum was of the essence.
This is Gary. I think our partnership with the ad is good and strong, and I support continuing that. And the best thing they did was hiring Tara. So a great step. But if you're ready for a motion to continue this contract, I'm ready to make it.
Well, actually, I think are we at the local and regional plan first?
We are.
Tara?
Yes, sir. We first need to approve the WIOA plan, and then I'm actually gonna leave for the part where you are confirming the other part, Judge Moore. But anyway, yes, first the plan.
Okay, first the plan, which is required to be approved by us this very day. So it's a good thing we have a quorum, Chris. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Would anybody like to put it in play with a motion?
I'll make the motion. This is Chris.
Excellent. We have a motion. I'm going to second that
Second,
just to
Judge
move things
Ellis.
along. Yeah, okay.
Awesome.
We have a second, several seconds. Does anybody have any question about the fiscal year 2022 to 2025 local and regional plan? All right, yeah, as a comprehensive document, it all looks to be in order. If there aren't any questions, and this is the last call for that, we'll have our vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Anybody opposed? All right, the vote passes unanimously.
Thank
And
you.
I'll leave it to you, Tara. Thank you, everybody. I'll leave it to you as to which one of the remaining items you want to pick up next, but maybe that budget.
Yes,
which
the budget would be
requires
great. The budget would be great. And I'm going to share my screen so that you may see. We sent you a number of budget items, but this is wait, actually, is this right, Liberty?
Nope, that's the
Nope.
KPI.
Yep, you're right. Sorry about that, everybody. Let me try that again. It's the danger of sending you guys, 15 or whatever it was, documents. Let me just go back out here. Here we are. That's the right one. Okay. Sharing now. All right, you should see it here in just a second. There we are. Okay, so as is the case every year, this is a planning document budget based on planning figures that we have received from the Cabinet for Education and Workforce Development. We will not know our actual allocation until significantly later in the year, but this is our best effort and a reasonable, educated guess based on what they have told us. So I'm going to let Liberty walk you through quickly the projected carryover numbers and the projected allocation numbers, and then I can talk you through what we're proposing, which is the part in red. And I'm going to try to zoom in a bit. Liberty, go ahead.
That would be helpful. Yes, as Tara mentioned, these are projections for our revenue for the upcoming fiscal year. The projected carryover, I analyzed the current year expenses and then kind of guess what we're going to spend for the rest of FY21, and then we will have carryover from our 2-year grants. And for the WIOA funds, we're looking at about $776,709. The National Dislocated Worker Grant, when we prepared this budget, this was our projected carryover. Since then, the state has mentioned they are going to recapture some of those funds. So a newer projection is going to be about 700,000, but that's not official yet. So that's why I left it on here for today's presentation. Just wanted to point that out. The planning figures, the projected allocation, the next section in green there, those numbers come from the state. They give us planning, their expected planning figures. So we use those numbers until we receive our actual allocations, which will be our July and October allocations. And then Tara, the next section is our set aside budgets.
Yeah, I'll just add on the projected allocation that it is down $145,000 from last year. And I will add on the carryover, I'm happy to talk about any details related to the carryover. We have noted along with our colleagues across the state that it has been more difficult than we would have thought during the pandemic to get a number of clients enrolled in trainings. I mean, we're happy to enroll them, but they're not really signing up in the numbers that they previously were. So we have been working, especially regarding youth work experience. Our youth are harder to find than ever right now. And that again is something that we're hearing as a trend across the Commonwealth and across the country. However, we are working with Brighton Center as our subcontractor to create a plan of action in order to get those funds spent during the time frame. They were extended until until June of 2022. Regarding the National Dislocated Worker Grant, we received 2 allocations. We are all set for being able to spend, we believe, the first allocation, but when the state sent us the second allocation, we already knew at that time, based on the very rigorous structure of that grant, that was going to be extremely difficult to spend. And we did not have plans for it the way we did for the first allocation. And so rather than to face any kind of punitive action later, we are voluntarily sending those monies back because they're extremely challenging, and the ways that we can spend those are extremely limited. Happy to talk about that more, but going now to the projected budget there at the bottom in the red. We'll talk later that, we'll continue to have Brighton Center as the operator and the delivery of direct services. And so those are those numbers there. We do have some data that we use. So that's the jobs EQ. And we are hoping to put some funds in outreach. That is pending because, again, with the trouble of connecting with clients, we feel like we need to have some more outreach. But if we do, in fact, have the decrease that the state says, we may end up pivoting and not having those outreach dollars. Youth work experience is the word work experience there, $294,000. So definitely would like to reach out to local youth. We are pivoting a bit on our strategy, and that's where you see the incumbent worker and OJT. For the past several years, predating my term here, most of, or if not all of our funds were put into job seeker training. And there were no funds set aside on the employer side. And we feel very strongly that given the economy and given that our employers are crying out for more help, we think it makes sense to allocate some of those funds that we have in training to having partnerships with employers and training their employees that they already have or new employees. We just think this is going to be an effective way. It's upskilling our workforce either way, but having strong partnerships we think is critical. And so that's those 2 pots of money that you may not have seen previously. And then the rest, the ITAs, are those traditional training dollars through WIOA. That's pretty much the heart of the budget. Does anybody have any questions?
This is Gary. I have a couple. What is youth scholarships? They're in that lower section there, halfway down.
You know what, honestly, Judge Moore, I think that is a relic because there's actually not any money set aside for that. In the budget, it's a 0. I think that must be something that just got left. Liberty, do you want to comment? There's no money actually set in the budget for that name.
There's not.
We can just take that out. That's a little bit confusing.
When there was, would that have been like scholarship opportunities for somebody like Gateway or?
I'll be really honest with you that I'm not 100% sure because we already have, if you look down, and it may just be a change of names.
Yeah.
Educational/career enhancement funds is the terminology that we currently use. And we have $50,000 in the budget that would allow for education and training for our youth. And so that would allow our youth today to go to enroll in Gateway or CET or one of the other local programs. So I'm not sure if maybe we changed the name, but for some reason didn't take it off, but we do have that today.
All right. Another question I have is apprenticeships. We're hearing a ton about apprenticeships in the President's American Jobs Plan and billions of dollars that are going to flow into that. Does that come through us in one of these categories?
Yeah, so that is an awesome question. The answer is maybe, and here's why. Gateway and the KCTCS system, so JCTC would fall under this as well, They have their own apprenticeship program that is going to roll out this fall. And through a grant that they received a couple years ago, they've been in the planning phase. We actually are working to schedule a meeting with our friends at Gateway about how do we make sure that the WIOA funds and their apprenticeship dollars lace together really well. And so in that case, that money would not flow through us, but we might be able to support those efforts. I know that the Commonwealth, so the Office of Employer and Apprenticeship Services and Education Cabinet has applied to the US government. Oh, we lost Chris, I guess, for a second. Has applied to receive funding for apprenticeships. I don't know yet if they get that money, if that will be directly from the state. And like sometimes those funds, we apply as a local entity on behalf of an employer, for example, but then the money just goes straight from the state to that employer. It doesn't really pass through us. There's a couple different ways it could work. And so it's not clear yet if it will be allocated to us or if it'll just go straight from the state to the beneficiary.
Thank you.
Sure thing. Any other budget questions?
All right, not to preempt the next thing you'd like to say there, Tara, but do you have further documentation you want to share, or does this bring us to a place where we could vote on the budget?
I did provide in the email that Kim sent a number of additional documents, but this really is the heart of the budget request. And so I was planning to stop at this point unless there were further questions.
Well, doesn't sound like there are any. Would someone like to make a motion with respect to the budget presentation?
This is Gary. I would move approval.
Thank you, sir. Anybody with a second?
Chris.
Thank you. Very good. We have a motion, a second, to approve the budget as presented and prepared. Anybody with a comment? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? All right, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Tara, we're already off script. What you want to continue with whatever you'd like to put before us?
I can do that. I don't know how much longer you're gonna have Judge Knockelman. So if you like, I just made Kim the co-host. I believe you all are gonna want to vote on one more thing. So I can actually have the staffs kind of leave the meeting, if you will, and then you can just text me to come back and give the rest of the report if you want to do that.
Okay, so you want to have Kim's presentation on the selection of a fiscal agent?
Yeah.
Sub-grant? All right.
Yeah, if you don't
Kim,
mind.
Sarah, if you're out there, you're on.
I'm out there. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, well, I don't really have a presentation. I did send to all of you several weeks back the current agreement for grant subrecipient services and an addendum that would allow the LEOs to extend that agreement for another 2 years, if that is your choice. Otherwise, we would have to release an RFP for those services because the current contract expires at the end of September. So from my understanding, the ad has done an excellent job in being our fiscal agent. So I guess I would ask all of you to consider whether or not you want to extend the current agreement or do an RFP and then vote on that. And if you have any questions about what the scope of service is or anything like that, we can talk about that. But
my thought is that the recommendation of staff would be that we, they're happy with the ad, they're sort of part of it. And but all the documentation that's been provided here has nothing but glowing things to say, not only about the ad, but also about the Brighton Center. There's not a discouraging word in the evaluations that have been done of either of those parties. So Sounds like something we ought to do to me. Anybody else with a thought?
I would agree and make a motion.
Okay. Casey Ellis just weighed in. Anybody with a second?
Chuck, you want to get in with the second, get your name in the minute? There you go.
Okay, that looked like a second to me. So we have a motion made by Casey Ellis and a second by Chuck Dills. Anybody with another comment or question? All in favor, please say aye.
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 All right,
All right.
motion carries. I think it's unanimous. Okay, now, Kim, if you can send that
I am.
email or that message, I'm
that right
sorry.
now. Okay. I just did, so maybe 30 seconds and the staff should be back. Here we go.
Okay. Hi, everybody. How loud is the dog?
Ah,
Can you hear?
Background noise.
Sorry.
You're okay.
Okay. Really appreciate everybody's flexibility. I know a Friday afternoon is not necessarily the most opportune time for all this fun stuff, but really appreciate your support as we created that plan and certainly with the budget. How would you like to hear my update? That
From the
sound good?
top and straight through would be fine.
Okay, perfect. So first of all, did want to let you all know just a few things. We are working on something that we will be sending. It just requires the CLEO's signature, which is the Workforce Investment Board certification. And so just want to let everybody know that we will be getting with Judge Pendry on that. It's just a, kind of perfunctory thing that we have to do, but there's a number of questions. And so that'll be happening by the end of June. The other thing that we I did want to let you know a follow-up from our previous meeting in November. And it's, sorry, probably not funny, but we're still working on something that we talked about in November, and it's about to come to a close, which is that if you recall, I mentioned that, when the pandemic began, we were asked by the Education and Workforce Cabinet, which at that time was running the unemployment insurance program. We were asked to help with calls of individuals who had been laid off and that were having trouble filing for unemployment insurance. And of course, we stepped up and had our WIOA staff do that because it was an emergency. And unemployment insurance is already a partner of the Kentucky Career Center Network, one of the 13 partners in that program. And so, we already, prior to the pandemic, would take calls that people had questions and we would refer them to the right agency. So it really wasn't that different. We were just getting a lot more of those calls. And then over the course of a few months, we had certain staff members that tended to have maybe more expertise in that area who ended up getting training from the cabinet in order to provide more detailed UI services. In October or November, right before we had our last meeting, we were told that having those staff members do that extra help was inappropriate and that we were going to need to basically pay back WIOA or not use our WIOA funds for that purpose. We were, as you might imagine, upset by that news because we felt that we were acting in good faith with the cabinet in order to provide a service in an emergency situation. Over the last, what's it been now, 5 months, 6 months, We have been in continued conversations, and so I'm very pleased to report a positive outcome on that issue. Lisa Cooper just yesterday was able to sign a memorandum of agreement by which we will be reimbursed for the time, right? So the funding spent on that work by the Labor Cabinet, which is now in charge of UI. And then we will basically free up the WIOA funds that were previously used. Luckily, we found out about this just in time for our audit, and we're able to make notes in the previous fiscal year's audit to make basically space for these funds to be reallocated to us. And this should be resolved in a number of weeks, at which time we will it'll just look like we have some extra WIOA funds, but we're prepared for making sure we allocate those appropriately so that we don't, have any unspent funds by the end of the fiscal year. So I just wanted to let you all know that that had come to a positive conclusion, almost. Judge,
It's a
you have
great,
Excellent.
great report. I'd been disappointed if it had not been that way. Not with you, but with the state.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been really pleased with our ability to work with Deputy Secretary Vicki Wise of the Labor Cabinet. She's personally been involved, and it's been extremely helpful. So wanted to let you all know that as well. Also wanted to let everybody know that we have conducted a contract monitoring of our subcontractor, which again is Brighton Center. From a program design standpoint, we feel like everything is appropriate. You have the full monitoring in your handouts. This is where, had we gone in order, you would have heard before the budget that we do have some concerns about the low numbers of clients enrolled in the youth work experience program, because we do have requirements to have 20% of our allocation spent under that youth work experience area. And so we are developing a plan of action with corrective action with Brighton Center. I mean, they are working very hard. I will say they are doing a lot of outreach. It's just been extremely difficult to translate that outreach into enrolled clients. And so we're working hand in hand with them in order to get that done. So you'll see that mentioned in the contract monitoring if you look through it. We've also noted some training that is needed in the state's platform Key Suite, where we enter all the client information, and that training is actually ongoing this week and next. So that's good. Also good news, I think, is that we have received our first and second quarter based on fiscal year performance information. This is the first time since I have been with the WIB that we have received state performance results because the Key Suite, I know you guys have heard about this, that the Key Suite platform is really inadequate in terms of its design to create reports, unfortunately, but they're working on that. And so we finally have some. And this will be the first year that we are responsible for certain performance metrics goals at the end, for meeting those at the end of the fiscal year, because the last 2 years we've had a waiver because of the problems related to Key Suite. So I'm pleased to report that we are meeting or exceeding all of our goals. We're within the, we still have 2 quarters left, but feeling good about our direction. And I mean, I can bring it up if you like, but basically we're doing well. Those individuals that are enrolled in WIOA are, having outcomes like, continued enrollment or in training, or, getting a job and keeping it. Those are the kind of things we're evaluated on. And the wages that our clients are earning tend to be higher than those of our peers across the state. I think that's just because wages tend to be higher up here. But I did think that that was an interesting side note. So I'll just really briefly, because I think this is a document that you might want to see. I'm just going to pull it up here super fast, trying to be cognizant of time. Let me see here. I'm going to hit share so that you can see what I'm talking about. And David Klockner on our staff did a nice job of putting this together in a format that was legible. So the state is this dark blue here. Northern Kentucky is beside it. I can zoom in so you can actually see that. So here we are. We've got adult, which is our low income adults that are WIOA eligible. DW stands for dislocated workers. So those would be people that would be eligible for unemployment insurance. They've been laid off from their job. Youth are those 16 to 24-year-olds who otherwise were not enrolled in education or employed. And then Wagner Pizer is actually a state program that is a partner at the Career Center, but does not run through the WIB. So, and then you can, if you really want to get into it, you can see how we compare to our other regions. And so this map is color coded. And so like, this is the blue section. This is how we compare to those regions in the blue. The next page is how we compare to our friends in Eastern Kentucky and so forth. So, but you'll see that, you know, based on PY 20 NEG, that's the negotiated rate. So we are comparing ourselves against this rate here. So we are either, like I said, either meeting or exceeding each one of those expectations. Does anybody have any questions about the performance? Okay. I will add that based on the performance and based on the contract monitoring, the Program and Youth Committee of the Workforce Investment Board voted to move to the full WIB meeting, which will be on May 11th, that the contract for Brighton Center be extended an additional year, as is part of the potential of the procurement is it's for 1 year to be extended potentially for 2 additional years singly. So, so that is in progress. I'm just gonna.
Tara, if I may interrupt for just a moment, Judge Knockelman has texted, he lost signal. He can try Wi-Fi to get back on if needed. I think we do need him for, no, we're okay.
We're done with the action items.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Tara,
Yes, sir.
Judge Fields texted me back. He's in a no service zone with his phone. He was trying to get on. So he just wanted everybody to know he was trying to get on. He just couldn't.
Got it. Thank you so much for letting us know that.
Thanks.
And, you know, as always, everybody, you know, in these meetings, I know it can be a little hectic. I am happy to meet with any of you individually if you want to talk about the, you know, the way that we're serving each of your areas. And that was actually the last thing in my director's report was what's going on locally with service. We do continue to be one of the few areas with full Career Center operations up and running, and we have been open since November. In-person unemployment insurance did start April 15th. That's going very well in Covington, except it's very hard still to get an appointment. Did want to let everybody know that if you have any constituents who, oh yeah, I need to let Katie Jo know she could come back. Let's see. But if you had any constituents that have a problem with unemployment insurance, really the only option we have at this point is to continue to encourage them to go to the kcc.ky.gov website. And every day, another day of appointments comes open that's 2 weeks in advance. I have been told that that site refreshes with new appointments at midnight. So if that is helpful, you know, they're filling up pretty much immediately as soon as they're opening up. So knowing that it happens at midnight might be good. So I want to let you all know that. And then just as a reminder, over the last year, we have expanded our network from 5 locations to 8. We've certified Carrollton as an access point in their, you know, relatively new location. We've still got CVG, one of the few in the United States at an airport, and that's going really well. We've got Florence, we've got Covington. We also have Williamstown, which is in a new facility co-located with NKU and SkillsU. That's a great property and really appreciate the city of Williamstown's and Grant County support in making that location happen. That's in the process of getting certified as an affiliate site like Florence is. And then we also have 3 new access points in partnership with local libraries. So the Kenton County Public Library, the Erlanger branch, as well as the Owen County and Pendleton County libraries are now access points for the Career Center, which means library staff are trained on all of the aspects of the Career Center offerings from all the partners, not just WIOA, and continuing to stay connected. There's flyers available, and Career Center staff are spending office hours down in each one of those locations in order to make sure that local individuals have access without having to make quite as long of a drive. Also, libraries are just a very accessible and friendly place. Most people like going to the library. It doesn't seem quite as maybe having a little bit of a stigma of going, you know, what's the Career Center? What does that mean? Going to the library, I mean, you can take your kids there, you can do whatever. So we feel really great about that partnership and are looking to continue it. We've got a meeting with the state library group later this month to kind of see what else we can do with them. So feeling very positive about all of those turns of events. Also, just very last to let you know that we are looking at a number of the barriers to employment, because we are continuing to hear from our employers that they are really just quite desperate for talent. And so we're really looking at kind of any of the reasons that somebody, you know, might not be able to rejoin the labor force, because we do have lower number of people employed now than we did at the beginning of 2020, and thinking through that. So one of those is just the policies around UI. We kind of know we can't do a whole lot about that right now, but we are working. We did get a data sharing agreement in place with the labor cabinet, where we now have a list of everyone in Northern Kentucky who is on unemployment insurance. And we have a staff member at the Brighton Center who is reaching out to them all. So via mail or phone or email. We're hoping through that process, and now with in-person appointments, that we're going to be able to translate that into more services for dislocated workers. We are also working with our colleagues at EC Learn and some of the other childcare facilities in the region, like Learning Grove, to really think about the childcare sector and what's been happening with that. I mean, I know as a parent of young kids, you know, at 2:30, I got to go take a minute out of my day. I take lunch at that point and drive to the school and pick up the kids, and then I continue. Well, not everyone has that luxury of being able to take lunch whenever they want. And so we are doing a lot of brainstorming. We have an event coming up on May 18th, where we're going to get together childcare providers with some of our workforce partner staff to really make sure everyone's aware of the services that each other offer. This is like frontline staff to make sure that they understand that, and so that we can make sure that anybody who is wanting to get back in the workforce understands what their options are regarding childcare. And then the last area where we've had a lot of time and attention spent lately is in what we're calling transformational employment. Sometimes we call it second chance employment, though I love, you know, Alicia Webb Edgington says it many times, is sometimes it takes more than 2 chances. So maybe we shouldn't be calling it second chance. So that's why we're going with transformational employment. But whether it's because of substance abuse or substance use disorder, or whether it's because of some kind of other incarceration, there's a lot of individuals that, you know, maybe be on the sidelines because of that history. And so we're working really closely with a grant that St. Elizabeth received to partner with Life Learning Center and Brighton Center to think about having no wrong door. But if somebody wants to get back in that workforce, but they're still having trouble, how do we make sure that all the supports are there, so that then, and working with employers, because heaven knows it's not always easy to employ folks that haven't been employed for a while, to make sure they have the support they need to get all those individuals back in the workforce. Because we study after study shows that if they're working, their recidivism or relapse is much lower. So I just want to let you all know that we're working on all those things and probably some others, and ask if you had any questions. That concludes my official report.
That's a lot. Does anybody have a question they'd like to ask?
More of a comment, but in the, again, in the American Jobs Plan, if it's passed in its current state, there's a $12 billion allocation nationally for those disadvantaged workers and job training for formerly incarcerated and justice-involved youth. And it's really to create new and innovative programs. So right up the alley of what you just talked about.
Yeah, one of the areas of the most opportunity in terms of the most work that needs to be done is really in that juvenile justice space, Judge. There's just not enough going on right now to help those young adults transition back into the world when they're coming out of the juvenile justice system. Our team, led by Tony Sloan, is really working very hard to really do a landscape right now of what's going on with them and how we might be able to really support through our youth work experience and some of our other youth programming. But we will definitely keep an eye out on the Katie Jo as our resident expert on all things funding, to see if hopefully we can put some of that to work in helping some of those justice involved youth get back on track.
All right. I'm not hearing any further questions. Are there any? And if not, and once again, back on our schedule, we may have arrived at the new business heading. So I'll just ask if anybody has a subject matter we ought to consider for the future.
Just one thing real quick. I need to go too, but I'm the one that's prolonging this, so sorry. I was meeting with a developer the other day. It's in e-commerce, and we know that we're getting tons of that. But they gave me a stat that at an $18 an hour job for an e-commerce, if the person has to travel more than 20 minutes, they're not likely to be sustainable with an $18 an hour job, 20 minutes. And that would apply to either driving or transit. So I think as we do our work and work with our partners, thinking about that in the future, about where are these workers going to come from and how do we get them there will be key. So I'll just throw that out. You don't have to answer it, but it's coming.
I think it's a really good point. Not only who are they and where are they coming from, but I mean, when we think about the quantity of jobs that are open in our area, it definitely gives me pause of thinking about supporting our employers. And so, when we think about, well, what if we brought them from further out or, further away? I mean, there's other counties in Kentucky that are not doing nearly as well, right, in terms of availability of jobs. I mean, I'm originally from Boyd County, and most of my cousins, frankly, have left because there's just not any opportunity there. It's a challenge, though, when you think about the monetary aspect of someone from a little farther away, coming here, either if they're commuting or if they were planning to move. The cost of living up here is higher than it would be, outside of the region. And so those are the kinds of things I think you're exactly right that we're going to have to think about as we continue to try to attract, more residents and more employees. Yeah.
Okay. Any similar thought under our new business heading here? Anything for the good of the order? If not, my favorite motion is in order. Which one would that be? And who'd like to make it?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, we should hear multiple seconds for that. I want to thank everybody before we call the question and conclude the meeting. It's very well organized material. I continue to see nothing but good stats and comments for all the work that's being done. That the metrics look good. So, thank you one and all. And thanks to all the judges for joining us. We had to make a couple of pronouncements here today to keep the train on the tracks, and we managed. So with that, we have our motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Yeah.